What happens when the person you trust most turns out to be the one who betrays you in the most public way possible? That's the heart of Nicola Sturgeon's memoir, frankly, and it's a story that's way more than just a political scandal. Let me tell you, this isn't just about stolen money or a husband in trouble, it's about how power, relationships, and public image collide in ways that leave everyone involved scrambling. And honestly, the more I dig into this, the more I realize how much this story reflects deeper issues about accountability, trust, and the personal costs of political ambition. Here's the thing, Peter Murrell didn't just steal £400,000 from the SNP. He did it while holding the keys to the party's finances, which means he had the kind of control that's almost like having a blank check to rewrite the rules. Now, I get that people in power often have access to resources others don't, but when that access is tied to personal relationships, it creates this toxic mix of privilege and secrecy. Sturgeon says she was completely unaware of the purchases, but let's be real, if you're the first minister of a country, and your spouse is running the party's finances, isn't it a bit of a red flag that there's no oversight? I mean, how do you even begin to separate personal life from public responsibility when the lines are so blurred? And then there's the part about the gifts. A £425 gold pendant, a luxury motorhome, and all sorts of high-end items that somehow ended up in their possession. Sturgeon claims she didn't know where they went, but here's what's fascinating, she had no reason to doubt Murrell. That's the kicker, right? Because when you're in a relationship, especially one that's under the public microscope, you're supposed to trust your partner. But when that trust is built on a foundation of unchecked financial control, it's like walking on a tightrope with no net. And when the net finally snaps, it doesn't just hurt you, it ruins your reputation, your credibility, and your entire political career. Now, let's talk about the fallout. Sturgeon's move to London isn't just a personal escape, it's a strategic maneuver. She's distancing herself from the SNP, the media, and the toxic legacy of her time in power. But here's the thing, you can't just pack up and leave a political mess behind. The damage is done. And when she criticizes her successor, John Swinney, for softening environmental policies, it's clear she's still deeply invested in the party's direction, even if she's not officially part of it anymore. That's a classic case of someone who's not ready to let go of their influence, even when they're trying to reinvent themselves. And then there's the novel. A political thriller based on her insider knowledge? Sounds like a way to cash in on her notoriety, but I think there's more to it. Maybe she's trying to process everything that happened, or maybe she's setting up a narrative that's more about the system than the scandal itself. Either way, it's wild to think she'd turn her own life into fiction. What does that say about her? That she sees her story as something bigger than just a scandal? Or that she's trying to reclaim her narrative in a world that's still judging her? But let's not forget the elephant in the room, the criticism from Russell Findlay. He's calling her out for a lack of self-awareness, which is fair, but it also feels like a cheap shot. Because while she's not facing criminal charges, the reality is that she was in a position of power that allowed Mull's actions to go unchecked. That's not just about guilt, it's about responsibility. And if you take a step back, this whole saga isn't just about one couple's downfall. It's about how institutions fail to hold people accountable, how personal relationships can become political liabilities, and how the public's trust is both fragile and easily exploited. So, what does this all mean for the future? Sturgeon's memoir is out, her novel is in the works, and the SNP is still reeling. But here's the bigger question. How many more stories like this are out there, waiting to be exposed? Because if this is just the tip of the iceberg, then we're looking at a systemic problem that goes way beyond one person's betrayal. And that, my friends, is the real story here.